cover today. My name's Molly Gray. I serve as the Executive Director of the Vermont Afghan Alliance, and I want to personally welcome you to this information session and public briefing, Beyond Minnesota, Supporting Refugees and Immigrants in Vermont. I want to welcome you on behalf of all of the panelists and the hosts. Before we get started, I do want to discuss a few ground rules and housekeeping items regarding our conversation today. First, this session will be recorded. We initially created this info session on Tuesday with a hope of sharing information with volunteers, allies, and members of the public about how they can support the communities that we all work with. We anticipated a couple hundred people, maybe over 1,100 people have RSVP'd today. We'll have a recording of this session available, and we'll share it with all registrants and on YouTube after. So our regrets to anyone who's not able to log in. We did cap the webinar at 1,000 people. We want to welcome you throughout this session to put questions into the chat. And I want to recognize that we will try to get to as many of them as possible, but there are questions that we may not have an answer to. Questions involving state leadership or Vermont State Police or the National Guard or things that are beyond our purview, but please put them in the chat because we will elevate any questions that we don't have answers to appropriate groups and individuals. We also want to recognize that the panelists and organizations here today are a few of many, many in the state who are showing up and doing incredible work. So if you're an organization that's not speaking today, but you have resources to share them in the chat. Also, this is what we hope to be a first session, info session of many more to come as we work to get through this very, very challenging time together. And then finally, that this is a space of inclusivity, of support, of connection, of love and kindness. Comments of harm, comments that may be racist or derogatory will not be tolerated, and we will remove people from the group. So I now want to move to the agenda. Today, we're planning to discuss 4 big topics and then to leave plenty of time for questions and answers. The first topic is level setting on the information that we have around what's called Operation Paris, the operation that happened and started in Minnesota, what we're seeing in Maine, and then what we anticipate in Vermont. Next, we'll talk about immigration legal resources, tools for the immigrant community in Vermont, plus for those who are working with individuals and may have concerns. What do you do? Where do you go? Who do you contact? Next, we'll talk about reporting ICE activity, where to do that, and how to become a trained observer and supportive person. And then finally, mutual support opportunities. So food, transportation, showing up to support organizations working directly with refugees and immigrants who may be most vulnerable. I'm going to start with the first topic, and that's a bit of a briefing on Operation Paris, PARRIS, which stands for Post-Admission Refugee Re-Verification and Integrity Screening. So on January 6th, DHS and USCIS launched Operation Paris, an effort to combat suggestions of fraud within the refugee and immigrant community in the United States, but really with a target initially on Minnesota. And the focus of this operation has been individuals who are refugees in the legal sense, so P1s, P2s, individuals who came here as refugees and who do not yet have their green card. So this would really be individuals who arrived under the Biden administration, most likely within the last 5 years or less. This operation has also targeted asylum seekers, so those who have a pending asylum claim, either because they came to the U.S. through the U.S.-Mexico border and then applied for asylum in a defensive sense, defense from removal, or affirmative asylum. So those are the two populations that we are most concerned about because individuals have to share their documentation, address, biometrics with the US government. ICE has individuals' current addresses, their places of employment, and are going to those places to try to find individuals. Once they're detained, we've learned that they are oftentimes taken quickly to Texas, where the so-called re-verification or rescreening process happens. And for those individuals who are found to be eligible to remain in the United States, sometimes their verification process ends in Texas and they are let go in Texas without their documents. So that is what we know thus far about this process, but we also know from Minnesota that individuals who may have an accent or may appear to be an immigrant have been swept up and at times temporarily held at a location within Minnesota and then ultimately released. But this has also included US citizens. So the concerns are quite broad and significant. We know that this operation over the last 10 days has expanded to Minnesota, and now we have concern and more clarity that there will be a surge of ICE activity here in Vermont. It's not a matter of if, but really when. And today, the focus of our call is really building connection, building preparedness, communicating what we know with all of you as organizations so that we can invite your support as we work to keep our newest Vermonters, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues feeling deeply safe and supported here in the state. I'm going to pause now. I'm happy to take more questions about that later, but I really want to move to the next topic and what I see as the sort of most urgent and most important topic at this time, which is immigration legal support. And now you're going to hear from Emma from the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project and Nathan from the Association of Africans Living in Vermont, AALV. Both are immigration attorneys on the front lines and will have information to share with you about what to do to support an immigrant neighbor or friend in your community and what advice you might provide.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Just want to make a quick note that it seems like people are already, for the most part, following, but please actually put your questions in the Q&A function instead of the chat, or the chat just gets a little bit out of control. Easier for us to moderate that way. Yeah, so I am Emma Matters, as Molly said, and I'm with the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project. Something that we are really trying to push and get information out about right now is the need to centralize legal intake within the state of Vermont. This is especially important in times of sort of crisis or felt urgency because there are limited attorneys, immigration attorneys within the state of Vermont and unfortunately nationwide as well. And it helps prevent us from duplicating work and accidentally working at cross purposes with each other. And when we are duplicating work or accidentally working at cross purposes with each other, that really ends up further limiting the amount of individuals that we can potentially represent. So what we're asking for right now is for folks to go through our centralized intake, which is live on Vermont Asylum Assistance Project's website if they want to refer someone for legal needs. We actually have like a brand new, nicer, better intake form that's going to be coming out this evening. And what we also want to do is prepare folks for the inevitability that not everyone is going to be able to access an immigration attorney. That is an unfortunate and scary reality, but it is the reality. There simply are not enough immigration attorneys to respond to the volume of need. And so some things that it is useful for individuals to prepare on their own if they don't have access to attorney or attorney support is things like copies of any paperwork or identification that they might have on them. We are recommending that individuals only carry copies Please do not carry your actual first your original of anything, because we do know that when individuals are being picked up and detained, those are being taken from them and are often necessary to have access to, if folks are detained or in proceedings due to detention. Um, for individuals, all of people's individuals should be kept ideally in a safe and locked location that someone else, a trusted friend, or a colleague or a family member has access to, so that they can access them freely in the event that someone is detained. For individuals who are worried about detention and about the possibility of being released from detention if detained, it's useful to gather things in advance, like letters of community support, proof of employment, um, proof of a firm address. All of those things can be used to support habeas requests or bond requests, and can be much, much harder to access once someone has already become detained. I think a really difficult reality that we're facing right now, but that I think people need to be aware of and ready to contend with, is the fact that as much as we want to talk about harm prevention in this moment, harm is going to happen. Detentions are already happening and they are going to happen. And the best thing that we can do is be as prepared as possible to support people leading up to and in the event of a detention occurring. Um, there are many places that are sharing resources like this in terms of preparedness. Vermont Asylum Assistance Project has been given funding by the state to prepare a resource library as well. So I would encourage you to check that out. We'll be linking to many of the already prepared resources, such as the ones that USCRI and other groups on this call have, as well as providing our own resources for what can be done to sort of help prepare people to meet this moment, both for those who are advocating for members of the immigrant community and for the immigrant communities themselves. And I think I'll stop my little spiel there and allow Nathan to take over at this point. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Emma. Yes, I'm Nathan from AALV. I'm the immigration lawyer at AALV. So I won't talk too much because Emma covered a majority of what we're trying to, give out to the community. And as Molly indicated in the beginning of this session, is that this is just one of many sessions that we hope to be able to help inform the public and community support on actions to take. I'll, second what Emma's saying about documents. So family members should have copies of those documents. A number is extremely important to have. It's easier to track people. The ICE tracker, detainee tracker isn't always updated in live time, but it's a lot easier to be able to navigate many systems to be able to track down the person that we're trying to help. And the importance of the central, I keep calling it like the central intake line, but it's what Emma was discussing about VAP's intake. We have a lot of times we see that sometimes folks will call service providers directly, which we're like AALV is never going to turn anybody away, especially if they're already represented by myself or other folks. And but the issue with that is we're finding that VAP and ALV are doubling the work with clients, and it just gets confusing, and then it essentially it slows down the process. So the benefit of having that central intake is that it will be those attorneys at VAP will likely refer to AALV or other legal service providers in the end result. It's just to make sure that nobody's getting lost in the weeds there. But again, if they already have an attorney, if they're being represented by me, they can of course call us. But that's the main of the central referral line. I want to also second what Emma said is that in reality, we would love to represent everybody, right? That's what we're passionate about. There's many immigration lawyers here pro bono that try to help as many people as we can, but realistically, unfortunately, it's not going to happen. So we're trying to gear more towards how do we prepare folks, as Emma again indicated, that unfortunately the detentions have been happening, they're going to happen. So it's not so much more like how to protect yourself from being detained, it's more how to protect yourself, and how the community can come together and help after that detention occurs, and what kind of pathways and resources that are available. So yeah, I mean, really, we're all still trying to figure out the best way to kind of streamline the process, but we'll continue to develop things and keep in touch.
And then one other thing that I just did forget to mention earlier and did want to emphasize is that right now there is a bill for consideration in front of the legislature that would provide state funding um, to potential attorneys who could support and represent detained individuals in Vermont. Um, as Nathan and I have both said, a huge part of the issue to accessing immigration legal support is just scarcity. And there has been a pretty big pushback by the legislature to accept and move forward any bill that would require money that isn't sort of a splashy thing that gets media attention, like asking ICE to unmask, which is like great, but in reality isn't going to stop any ICE agent from violating someone's rights. But what we can do right now as a community, and what I really encourage everyone on this call to do right now as a community, is to contact your state representatives and say, put your money where your mouth is, advocate for this bill. I think it is one of the most tangible ways that we can make a difference for our immigrant communities within Vermont right now.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Emma. There are so many questions in the chat, and we're going to try to get to as many of those during the question and answer period. But I will ask our presenters to please very clearly state your acronym and the organization you work for, because we do live in alphabet soup as organizations. So, okay, I next want to move to our second topic, which is on reporting ICE and ways to get involved in that process, as well as observer training. I'm pleased to introduce Rachel from Migrant Justice. And then also Martha Mackey from the Vermont Interfaith Action. And I will, Rachel, why don't we start with you? Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. As Molly said, my name is Rachel, they, them. I'm a staff member with Migrant Justice. And first, I just wanted to say it's really encouraging to see so many people here today. You know, we've seen an overwhelming show of support, not only over the last year, but especially over the last couple weeks from the broader Vermont community. Before I get too far into it, I know there's a lot of extra concern right now because of what we're seeing in the news, not only with, big increases in detentions, but also with the, murders of activists and detainees in immigration detention. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands, like, detentions are not new. They have been happening this whole time. We have already seen a drastic increase in immigration detentions here in Vermont. And they're not, immigration enforcement isn't about safety. It's about power and it's about control. It's about white supremacy and it's about enforcing capitalism. And understanding where immigration enforcement comes from is vital to informing the way that we can fight back against it. So with that said, Migrant Justice already has a robust rapid response network here in Vermont. We've been organizing this round since Trump came into office for the last year. Trainings just about weekly around rapid response and how to observe ICE. We're up around 2,000 people on the list, and we've been trying to keep it a little bit quiet before this, just for concerns around, safety, security. At this point, we're moving towards expanding the network as much as we can. So if you are interested in being part of rapid response here in Vermont, I would encourage you to go to Migrant Justice's website, which is migrantjustice.net, and click the button that says Get Involved. That'll bring you to a web form where you can put in your contact information and share the areas where you want to get connected to Migrant Justice's work. Rapid response is one of those areas, but there's also a lot of other work that we're doing. So I would really encourage you to check that out as well. We have a Zoom training, so virtual, available to anybody in the state, coming up on February 10th. The RSVP form for that will be shared after the training, and I'll put it in the chat here in just a moment. So I would encourage people to sign up for that and get the training. During those meetings, we talk about, immigration enforcement's, who's doing it, what the legal context here is in Vermont, because we're in a pretty special, unique situation here. In part because the immigrant community here in Vermont is so deeply organized and has been for a long time. We have protections here in the state of Vermont that do not exist in other areas to the same degree. And I think that's something to be deeply proud of and to find hope in and be inspired by. And then we do a Know Your Rights training to review the legal protections that supposedly everybody, regardless of immigration status, has. And then we talk very specifically about what rapid response looks like and how to do it. The goal with rapid response is to be able to show up quickly and provide support in moments of crisis, and to be able to, document what's going on, because ultimately, having evidence of the human rights violations that immigration officers are perpetuating every day is really important for people's legal defense and also safety in that moment. So again, if you're interested or excited about getting involved with rapid response, go to migrantjustice.net, click get involved, and let us know. Also on our website, you'll find guidelines about how to report sightings of immigration enforcement. Migrant Justice has a 24/7 emergency line that is available in English and in Spanish that you can call or message anytime, day or night, to let us know if you're seeing something. I will say, please only reach out to this number in cases of emergency. We try to keep that line clear for real crises. So if it's not an emergency, please reach out to our office or to our email at info@migrantjustice.net. And when you call that number, a staff member will respond and be able to walk you through what's going on. That number is a general rapid response line that covers the entire state of Vermont. So, Burlington, the Northeast Kingdom, Bennington, Brattleboro, everything is covered by that. We have people on the ground who are able to confirm sightings and respond. Yeah, I think those are the pressing things for now. I just want to make sure that, I'd be remiss not to mention that in moments of crisis like this, we have to continue to, center and follow the leadership of impacted communities. People who are being directly impacted by what's going on have the skills and the leadership and the knowledge to direct how we move forward. And so continuing to pay attention to that. And also being aware that immigration detention, working against that is deeply important. That question of whether or not somebody gets to go home is fundamental, right? And the question about what kind of home they're going back to is equally as important. So working towards, the protections that Emma was mentioning in the State House is awesome. So is amplifying workers' calls for programs like Milk with Dignity and for labor protections in the workplace. So as we talk about, supporting immigrants, supporting refugees, we've got to understand that that starts, that doesn't just start with detention, right? I think that's it for me. So pass it on to Martha. And I'll go ahead and share the sign up links in the chat right now.
A community organizer with Vermont Interfaith Action. And we are statewide grassroots community organizers, faith-based. And we have a campaign called Vermont Community Resilience, which has become one of our most prominent campaigns in the last year due to the current circumstances. And our focus is on combating hate and protecting our neighbors. So it applies really well to this situation. And we're really working on the community side of the rapid response work to complement the work that Migrant Justice is doing. So what we're trying to do is to create hyper-localized groups who are creating signal chats, which is something that's been being done, in LA, in Minneapolis, in DC, across the country. People creating these localized signal chats or phone trees of trusted community members who can share some of that more nitty-gritty chatter about ICE of like, hey, I saw a suspicious vehicle, or I heard a rumor that ICE is in town. And so instead of clogging up Migrant Justice's hotline with those like more local questions that are just going to fill up that hotline, we're trying to have people who are on the ground, who know each other, who trust each other, and can respond to those things, and then be educated on when to turn to Migrant Justice to ask for that immediate on the ground support. So what we've been trying to design is a series of mutual aid and safety hubs so that every region in this state, and then like even down to smaller sub-regions, so towns and cities, have rapid response groups built out and are in communication with their existing mutual aid groups and expanding upon them, working together so that as communities, we're ready to step up and help to protect our neighbors and to provide them the support they need. One of the things we're doing right now is setting up a series of community resilience prep potlucks across the state, and we're going to be hosting these in every region. I'm going to drop a flyer for one we're holding in Burlington next week. I'm not sure. Can I do that?
We're only able to share with host and other panelists when we try to post in the webinar chat, Martha. So if you have stuff to post, I would suggest looking for the appropriate Q&A question and answering it there.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I will drop that when I'm done with this spiel. But we're going to be holding these potlucks to bring communities together, to go through some basic training on how to respond in a rapid response situation, handing out whistles, know your rights flyers, rapid response best practices, and then getting people set up in their own local signal groups with the training as to how to do that, how to be responsible. And then we're going to be passing these people on to Migrant Justice for a full-length, detailed, rapid response training. So this is the kind of work we're doing. It's on the hyper-local level and trying to complement the work of all of these different organizations that are working directly with the impacted communities. So I would also encourage you to go to VAAVT.org. You can go to our contact page and you can sign up there for to get on our newsletter. And if you want to drop in the comment or question line, you can put VCR, Vermont Community Resilience, in there to indicate that that is particularly what you're interested in participating in. So a few things that we do specifically in addition to these potlucks. So we're organizing signal groups, connecting with rapid response trainings, providing accompaniments to people who are going to immigration meetings. We're also rallying clergy and people of faith to go to hearings. So there's one next week for Hussein Noor Hussein. We'll be rallying people to go to the federal courthouse for that up in Burlington, and then collaborating on providing mutual aid to people, as we've seen in Minneapolis when people are afraid to leave their homes and things like that. So that's the work we're doing. Would love to have more people involved. This is a community effort, and would love to have you.
Thanks, Martha. We will be sending after this webinar ends all of the resources that are mentioned to all of the registrants. So if you're not getting down every web address or every organization name or every contact, worry not. We will send you a helpful sheet of information. We're now going to move to supporting other mutual aid efforts and organizations working directly with communities. It's my pleasure to introduce Joe, who works for ECDC in Brattleboro.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe, the director of ECDC here, and thank you for coming. We just want to say thank you for the support you have been providing to our clients and during this very difficult time. I just want to say that here at ECDC, we have, as some of you already know, we have two offices, one here in Brattleboro and one in Bennington. And we also have presence in Springfield where we resettle some clients. I want to ask our for those who are here and also those who are in touch with our clients, we always encourage our clients, if you're working directly with them, please encourage them to reach out to ECDC case managers if they have any questions. We will make sure that all our clients know their case managers and also have the case managers' contacts. And so if you're directly working with any of our clients, let them make sure that they have their case managers' contact. We know also there are so much resources out there and so many things going on right now. So we too are making some efforts to continue to have information sections, bringing out these resources that some of which will be shared with you here, but also having them here at our Multicultural Community Center. And so we encourage our volunteers, partners, if you have any question or you're looking for resources, please make sure reach out to our offices at our Multicultural Community Centers here in Brattleboro, as well as the office in Bennington. And we also know that there are, events been happening around town. Please coordinate those events with us. The reason we're asking that is that we want to send the same message to our clients. Right now, we know our clients are very afraid, and we don't want to add more trauma to what they are already going through. So let us coordinate our messaging so that we give them the information that they need to have, and at the same time, not traumatizing them most. We basically, this is why we want to share. We continue to at least for all ECDC clients, we know that they have either been granted green cards or are in the process of getting their green cards, but we know that this time none of those things matter. And so we have a relationship with the AALV right now. And also we have in-house a legal person who's working with all the clients. So if there is any of our clients who may be confused, but we know that they all have the contacts, let them reach out to us. That's the central message I want to send, that let all our clients, both in Brattleboro and Bennington, reach out to us. Our partners as well, if you have a question, reach out to us. We send out newsletters. Please read our newsletter. Informations are in there. Facebook as well, our Facebook page, please go there. Our website, please go there. But at the same time, please reach our offices if you have any question. Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you, Joe. We'll now turn things over to Sonali from U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants in Vermont, operating both out of Burlington and Rutland. Sonali, the webinar is yours.
Thank you, Molly. My name is Sonali Samarasinghe, and I'm the director of the United States Committee for Refugees and Immigrants in Vermont, or USCRI-VT. Some of you may remember us by our former name, the Vermont Refugee Resettlement Program, VRRP. USCRI-VT is a full-service nonprofit refugee agency. We welcome and support refugees, asylees, and other legal eligible immigrants wherever they're from, or regardless of ethnicity or country of origin. We've been doing this work in Vermont for 45 years. During that time, we've helped resettle nearly 9,000 individuals. Our main office is in Colchester, with a sub office in Rutland, and we serve communities across northern Vermont, from Chittenden County to Rutland, Montpelier, and St. Albans. So how can you help when families are afraid to leave their homes or travel or go to the grocery store or ask for support? Because of strict privacy laws, we can't share information about individual clients. So that confidentiality is essential to keep families safe. So the most effective way to help is to work with us directly as a volunteer. Another way to help with food security, especially, and particularly since the loss of SNAP benefits for many refugees and asylees, is to donate gift cards, fresh produce, or food staples like rice, lentils, wheat, flour, and bring them to our offices, and our staff will distribute them to our most vulnerable clients. So if you like to volunteer with us, you could email volunteer@refugees.org, and our volunteer coordinator will follow up. All volunteers complete a background check, provide references, and receive training. In addition to volunteering, we also encourage everyone to share accurate information as you look out for your neighbors and friends. So USCRI has a safety planning guide in several languages that helps families prepare for possible immigration enforcement, arrests, and detention. It covers medical needs, finances, childcare, legal support, and how to keep important records safe. We'll share that document in the chat. We also have a Know Your Rights guide, which we will drop in the chat also. Another resource is the International Refugee Assistance Project, IRAP. They have multilingual resources that explain what happens during detention and what rights people still have. So we will drop that in the chat as well. Having this information and sharing it with your neighbors is one concrete way to reduce fear and increase safety. I will also remind you that we have a newsletter, just as much as Joe was saying, and we have a Facebook page, and you should always go there to see what's happening and to keep updated. Finally, thank you, Molly, for taking the lead in organizing this webinar. Thank you for having us. And thank you, everyone on this call, for showing up today, for standing with immigrant and refugee communities, and for reminding people that Vermont is and must remain a place of welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonali. Ali from the Central Vermont Refugee Action Network, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Molly. Sorry if my voice sounds funky. I'm getting over this cold that it feels like has been in all of our communities right now, but I am so happy to be here. So again, my name is Ali Zini. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the executive director of Central Vermont Refugee Action Network, or CVRAN. So, to echo what a bunch of people have said, I'm going to say some similar things. I'm really grateful for the outpouring of support on this call, feeling very encouraged to see the number of people engaged and choosing to be here today to stand up for your neighbors. We, as an organization, CVRAN, have existed since 2015 and have been an organization that was primarily exclusively a volunteer-based organization. So we're not a full-service refugee resettlement agency like Joe and Sonali have been talking about, but for the Central Vermont region, we have been a volunteer-based service provider working directly with families, primarily situated in and around Montpelier. We are a Central Vermont area service provider, so we try to expand our reach across Washington County and Central Vermont. We primarily operate using, or have in the past primarily operated using, a family team structure in which we provide volunteers, provide families and individuals that we work with in the community some wraparound support through the use of volunteers who live in and around their community. We also provide general as needed support for folks who are in the area and really try to act as a hub for resources, services, and support of all kinds for the immigrant community of Washington County. We provide a variety of, legal referrals and access, housing help and job placement, help with enrollment into schools, and in particular have both worked with families as they are resettling here for the first time and living sort of a normal day-to-day life. And a lot of our volunteers work day in and day out with families to do fun stuff like go bowling and provide childcare and do those important community engagement and connection tasks, to serve our families. And we also have, unfortunately, and will likely continue to be, working to support families as they have family members who are in detention, or who are, fearful, very validly fearful of detention, and needing things like transportation, childcare, food support while, seeking safety in our community. In particular, what does it look like to become a volunteer with CVRAN? We have a lot of transportation requests that come through. It's extremely important for our families to be able to get to and from where they need to go, whether that's work, English class, daycare, medical appointments. We're also always looking for folks to join in to interpret and provide advocacy for things like an appointment at the DMV can be really, really scary for an immigrant family who needs language access resources and who needs to, get what they need to get done at a simple DMV appointment can be not so simple in this time. We also provide, like I said, job resources, housing resources. We're in partnership with the Montpelier Food Pantry run by JBI, Just Basics Inc., to get food into the homes of families that need it. And there's lots more that I could say, but basically I just want to plug that it would be incredibly important and meaningful to families in the Washington County area if you live in central Vermont, to get looped into our services. So I'm going to certainly, after I finish talking and on the form that Molly has here, share how to sign up to be a volunteer with us, and would also encourage, as Joe and Sonali said, the best way to stay informed is to subscribe to our website for updates. And thank you so much to everyone for taking time to be here. We really, really appreciate it.
We'll now move to Jacob from AALV.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for putting this together. And on behalf of our community, I would like to say thank you to all of you for standing with the refugee and immigrant community here in Vermont. We feel safe because we know that our neighbors are always advocating and are ready to vouch for everyone in this state. That makes also our work easier, even though we are going through tough time. But as we always remind everyone, even though these are dark days, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. And this time would also pass. It's also up to us, to all of us, to make sure that every single individual rights is respected, to make sure that the Constitution has meaning. And it's now than ever that this Constitution should have meaning. Our civil ACLU section here in Vermont, our state attorney general should make sure that those rights are respected. If not, anyone can wake up in the middle of the night, write is a memorandum and try to do what they want. But if lawmakers, if judges are ready to push back, at least we'll have some relief. Here at AALV, we are reminding our client that they should not be afraid to reach out if there is a need. They should not be afraid to seek attention, medical care, for example, if there is a need in the family. Last week, for example, Nathan was dealing with a family that called out of St. Alban because their child was injured and didn't go to school. But unfortunately, as a mandated reporter, the school had to call the family and said they wanted to involve DCF. But one of the teachers reached out to Nathan and said, no, you should not do that. They are afraid. We should make sure that we work with them to reassure them that if they seek medical attention, the hospital is a safe place that is never going to call DCF or ICE on anyone. And it's also up to all the medical care providers, all the schools to remind that to the kids, to remind that to the parents, because you have a huge network of communication that can reach parents faster than most of us here in the community. At AALV, one of the things also we continue to remind our clients is to not be afraid to put in their applications, mostly those who are eligible for citizenship and green card. even though it's taking longer to process those, we have to continue working hard to submit those applications. They will be approved at some point. So, and that's also one of the messages I want you to remind your fellow Vermonters, your neighbors, that we are always here to help. We are ready to help them submit those petitions. And we'll do our best to continue to provide post-resettlement support to anyone who walks through our doors here. As much as we are available, we'll do our best to support that. And one thing I want to reiterate also that Nathan shared earlier, we are starting a series of community conversation and education. And we are going through various community in various languages and also a place of worship to at least try to answer as much as we can some of the concern community members might have. And if you have any concern, please reach out and we'll try our best to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. We're going to move pretty quickly into questions and answers now. I am going to pin all of our panelists so that we can give everyone a chance to answer some of the questions that have come into the chat. I'm actually going to start with Emma and Nathan, coming back to you. There were questions in the chat from legal counsels who want to get involved with VAAP, and if you could talk about how that can happen. Folks who want to get trained up quickly to participate in providing immigration legal assistance. There were more questions about how to participate in the upcoming potluck, and I think that would go to Martha. And then just a little bit more information about the rapid response. So if we could go around and just kind of reiterate that, I have made everyone here a co-host, so you should be able to now post in the chat group. And just to reassure everyone, there will be a recording of this, and we will share via email every link that was mentioned. So, Emma, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I think I can specifically request or answer the how to get involved requests. You can fill out the intake form, which was just posted by someone who isn't me, but is sharing my name. I think it may have been someone that I invited from my org to the chat. And so that is on our website and is an easy way to get involved quickly. And our wonderful pro bono coordinator, Bria Yazik, will respond to you with ways to get involved.
Nathan, anything to add on there was also a question around what documents should individuals keep with them. There was a question around the hierarchy of focus right now of Operation Paris, which I touched on. But do you just want to remind folks if they believe that someone in their community might be vulnerable, what is the recommendation to that individual today?
Yeah, sure. And I was trying to go through and answer some of the questions specifically, but I think, and maybe Emma can speak to this too. I think, everybody should proceed with caution, of course, because we see rights being violated no matter what. Undocumented folks, people who have pending asylum applications, are particularly vulnerable. But it's not, and people with, if they have criminal pasts or histories, they're particularly vulnerable. But I mean, I think people should, in any case, proceed with caution, but that doesn't mean everybody should be fearful. And I think there's, of course, people are scared. They're scared to go to the store. They're scared to go to school, to seek, as Jacob said, medical care. So we're trying to encourage people not to be scared, but just be prepared. Of course, having interactions with ICE is scary. That's why we want people to be prepared. So it's not, and it kind of goes along with one of the other questions is, should we be heavy focus on what happened, telling people that they're going to be detained? That's not what we're saying. It's just to prepare them if they are detained rather than, and we've heard a lot of feedback from community members who have either been detained or who are concerned about detention, and they have all said that they'd rather be prepared for detention after hearing all of this than know your rights in a sense, like what you to say, not say, in a particular instance. So that's what we're kind of focused on. And I forgot your other question, Molly.
I guess just if we've talked a little bit, I guess I'll just maybe jump in and say that we've talked a little bit more recently in coordination meetings that anyone who is currently represented by an immigration attorney, if they have questions, it's recommended they go back to their immigration attorney, go back to Nathan, go back to the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project. If you're worried about someone in your community, the first question you should ask them is, do you have an immigration attorney? And if there's concern, to go back to the immigration attorney and to talk through the plan. If someone is not represented, the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project on their webpage has an intake form for anyone who may need representation. And the same is true if you learn of someone who is detained, going to Migrant Justice and then going to the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project to start the process of making sure that there's representation. But we do not want the general public to provide immigration advice, because everybody's case is different. And what we know in this moment is that Operation Paris is largely focused on refugees who do not have a green card yet and those with pending asylum. And it's best for attorneys who understand the complexities and the potential security challenges for these individuals to work with them on a plan directly. I want to come back to Migrant Justice. Can you talk a little bit more about the hotline number? What is the number? Because there are a number of questions about that. And again, we'll share it. But if someone calls the hotline, why are they calling the hotline? And then if they call the hotline, what should they expect?
Yeah, of course. So real quick, and I'll say it out loud twice. And again, it'll be sent out. The emergency phone number is 802-881-7229. Again, that is 802-881-7229. And basically, you should call that number if there seems to be an immediate risk that somebody is going to get detained by immigration enforcement. So, for instance, if somebody is driving and gets pulled over by Border Patrol, if ICE shows up at somebody's house, that sort of thing, right? For instance, in Burlington, oftentimes Border Patrol is parked outside of the courthouse. We don't need to know every time that happens. But if you see Border Patrol, stopped behind somebody's car on the highway, that's absolutely something to reach out about, right? There is a flyer on our website on the resources page that shares a little bit more information about what to do, and when to call us versus when to report it through other means. And then in terms of what to expect, as I said, a Migrant Justice staff member will answer the call, and they'll be able to help walk through exactly what to do. So for instance, if you're calling in because you think you see something happening, we can talk through how to confirm it. So for instance, okay, how do you identify that, yes, this is Border Patrol doing a checkpoint as opposed to local police doing a checkpoint, for instance. If you're calling because you yourself are being targeted by immigration enforcement, we can, talk through, okay, here are exactly what your rights are. Here's how to, say different things. For instance, I exercise my right to remain silent, how to ask for the probable cause of what's going on, right? That sort of thing is what we can provide. If somebody has already been detained, obviously reaching out to VAAP is a good idea. There are places where, Migrant Justice might be somebody's first point of contact, for instance, because, and I think I forgot to mention this the first time I talked, but Migrant Justice is a grassroots organization that is founded and led by immigrant workers here in Vermont, mostly, Latin American workers. And so because of the connections we have in the community, the people might reach out to us first, and then we can help connect them to, legal representation or talk through next steps. So hopefully that answers the question. I did see a couple of questions about the training on February 10th. That will be, as I said, February 10th, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Over Zoom. I sent the RSVP link in the answered section of Q&A, and you'll also be getting that link through an email after the webinar is over. Yeah, I think that's everything. Is there anything else I can respond to?
That's great, Rachel. Thank you. There was a repeated question on what documents should someone carry with them now, day in and day out. Emma, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, for individuals who have access to documentation, obviously carrying a green card, uh, driving permit or a Vermont state ID or a passport, some form of photo ID that has your name and a picture is useful for those who have pending applications but might not have something as concrete as a green card yet. Carrying a receipt notice is something that they can do to demonstrate that. What I will say, I see some questions in the Q&A and in other places that are asking that are saying things like, yes, people do, people do want to know what to do in case they're detained, but they also want to not be detained. And I hear you. And I hope you know that like all of us on this call really feel that like pain and that grief and that anxiety, and we carry it with us, especially as we work with clients who are deeply concerned and impacted. There are not many ways to help ensure that someone will or will not be detained out, legal ways outside of like sort of community organizing, which again doesn't really ensure that people won't be detained, but can help sort of rally community members around vulnerable individuals. What there are ways to do is to keep people uh, from is to mitigate harm if harm occurs. And so things that can mitigate harm are potentially things like having documents on you, but really the things that we see mitigate harm that are hard to hold with you when you're in an emergency situation are not to give people access to your phone or technology, and to remember that you can remain silent and not respond to questions other than with things like, I don't want to speak until I'm able to have an attorney or another representative present. That can be really scary. We hear from a lot of people that there's a desire to share information that they feel might help them get out of the situation. And I understand that, but what we're seeing as legal advocates is that unfortunately, when you're at the point of a potential detention, there's not a lot of likelihood of getting out of that moment. But sort of the less that you unnecessarily share, the better your potential outcome is if someone is able to take your case on for potential release. So for a habeas petition or a bond petition. So a lot of this is about, again, like harm mitigation, not harm prevention, which I know is hard. So that was a long answer that partly addressed documents that can be carried on you. And again, we would say copies, not originals, but I think also speaks to this idea of, but we'd rather just not have detentions, and I do hear that.
Thanks, Emma. We are at time it's 1:30. I want to wrap up with just a recap of some of the big takeaways from today. If you have questions about immigration legal services and you're concerned about someone, have them contact their attorney. If they're not represented, have them go to the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project, complete the intake form. There are attorneys in this state who have capacity to help right now for anyone who may need assistance coming up with a plan, reviewing their documents, or filing an application if they don't have one pending. Second, if you want to participate in an observer training to become a trained observer, you're going to see the Vermont Interfaith Action and also Migrant Justice providing those. You now have access to the rapid response line. So if you see ICE or if you have concerns, you can go to Migrant Justice, sign up for their information, sign up to get involved. If you want to participate in providing food, transportation, or other supports directly to asylum seekers, refugees, and also members of the Migrant Justice, migrant community in the state, go to ECDC in Southern Vermont, USCRI in Northern Vermont and Rutland, CVRAN in Montpelier, Vermont Afghan Alliance also in Burlington. We will share all these resources. Also, consider getting involved with your local indivisible group. Very important for advocacy and some of the other support that's possible for individuals, groups, and families, and a lot of the public support that is deeply needed right now. And I know there are other actions and efforts. We didn't get to all of them today. Again, we hope this is just the first call of many to come, but thank you all so very, very much for spending time with us today, for showing up, for staying connected. And I believe I share the gratitude of everyone on this call that we don't feel alone right now, that we feel supported. And let's show the community that is most targeted, most vulnerable right now, that we have their back. So thank you, stay in touch, and we'll be in touch with more information soon.